Welcome to Happiness by Habit, the podcast where we uncover habits and strategies for building joy, achieving personal growth, and balancing life's many roles. I am your host, Silvana Pimentel. I am so glad you are here with us today. Each week, we will dive into topics that inspire and empower, from personal development and productivity to parenting and career success. So grab a coffee or something stronger and let's craft a little more happiness into our lives. One day at a time. Let's get started. Everyone, and welcome back to Happiness by Habit. I'm your host, Silvana Pimentel, and I am beyond thrilled for today's episode. We are diving into a topic that so many of us can relate to: sales. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a business professional, or even just trying to pitch an idea, sales is everywhere. But today, we're flipping the script with Harry Spaight, the founder of Selling with Dignity. He's the author of the book of the same name, which is all about transforming sales into service-driven, dignified, and truly enjoyable experience for both the salesperson and the client. Harry's story is incredible. From being a missionary to becoming a leader in sales, he's proof that you don't have to be pushy or aggressive to be successful. Harry, welcome to the show.
Silvana, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's going to be fun. I love chatting about sales, and you and I both have a background in it, so I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Me too, very much. So your journey is fascinating. You went from being a missionary to becoming a sales leader. Two different, really 100% different routes. What? How do you make that transition work? And what inspired you to write Selling with Dignity?
Okay, so what made that decision work, we'll start with that, is doing the mission work. It's all about being good with emotional intelligence because you can't go into another country and expect that people are going to listen to you unless you adapt to their ways. So I learned a lot through that, is like becoming more relatable to people with a different, with a different background, different culture, becoming a better listener. And so when I got into sales, I mean, it was a different background, right? My resume had nothing about sales. I interviewed in a few places and they said, well, what do you know about sales? I was like, well, I did mission work. Doesn't that count? And no was the answer for most people.
Oh,
No, they're asking about if I knew anything about quotas, if I knew how to close deals. It's like, I didn't know any of that stuff. So it was a tough road. But once I learned, or I figured out that the approach in a service mindset would get me sales, that's what I really adopted. And I read a great book. For those who are learning about sales, who are more servant minded, the book that I would recommend is The Greatest Salesman in the World. It was written in the 60s and it's all about serving people. And so I just started applying that and it actually worked really well for me. So when I started, after years and years of doing this, I felt like there are other people who need to sell that probably had the same struggles that I did. So that's why I wrote Selling with Dignity. So it's just a servant-minded approach to sales that actually works without being the hard closer or the pushy, it's all about me type salesperson.
I love that approach because many people associate uh, sales with pushiness or manipulation, but your approach
Right.
is exactly the opposite. Can you share how serving rather than selling became your formula for success?
Yeah, I mean, so I was in what is called a sales bullpen. So for those who don't know, if you look at some of these movies about sales, like Wolf of Wall Street's got some scenes in it, but there's a
Right.
sales bullpen in that, Boiler Room, even The Pursuit of Happiness, where there's a bunch of people making calls. That's what is a sales bullpen. So I was in that. It was very uncomfortable for me. This funny side note was I hadn't sworn, used curse words in years because of my mission background. So I'd have to go all the way back to high school. And so in the sales bullpen, the language was a little salty. So I was a little bit out out of the fit for the group there, but it's all fun. Learned a lot from, the benefit of it is I learned how some were making calls, and then I could decide if I wanted some of their traits or some of their strategies in mine, and then others I rejected. But what I knew was that when I was first starting to get into it, it took me months and months to struggle, because that's what you do in sales in the beginning. It's not easy. So then I figured out that I said, you know what? The best thing I can do is be the best customer service minded salesperson, and not worry about so much about when the deal is going to close. I'll just serve people. And that eventually led to sales, because people like that approach. They said, I don't even view you as a salesperson. So here I was in a highly competitive industry, and people would say things, I don't view you as a salesperson. That's a very nice compliment.
You're too nice.
Yeah, I was too nice, right? That's why I wasn't hired by some. One in particular said I was too nice to be in sales. It's like, oh, a missionary in a sales bullpen. They're swearing, cursing. You're never going to fit in. It's like, well, I used to play hockey, so I fit in anywhere. It's just like who I am today, but it doesn't mean I can't fit in. I know, it's all part of emotional intelligence, right? You're in a group of, not that I had to swear, but it's not like I would say, oh, your language is so offensive. Oh, don't talk to me because you're using bad language. I would never, ever say anything like that. I just would smile, and I would speak to people without cursing. And no one really picked up on it like I was different. So it's just, that's all part of using your emotional intelligence. You've got to know when to stay quiet. And I'm not judgmental, because that alienates people. So I prefer not to be judgmental.
Right. That's awesome.
What's your thought on that?
Yeah, no, you mentioned that some people feel they are too nice for sales. And I think a lot of the listeners might resonate with that. How do you help those individuals embrace sales as an extension of their natural kindness? So they can be nice. Yeah.
Exactly. So again, the personification of salespeople in Hollywood is often cutthroat. We think of the used car salesperson that is out there everywhere.
Right.
People will say things like, I don't want to be viewed as a used car salesperson. And why do they say that? Right? What comes to mind? They don't want to be viewed as pushy. They don't want to use this line like, what do I have to do to get you in this car today? All these things, strong closing, right? What's your thought on that?
Yeah. Yeah. The image of the salesperson of used car sales typically is about not only being super pushy, but especially pushy, but also a little bit of liars, no? Because a lot of times they say, okay, yeah, no. Well, let me see. Let me get my supervisor.
Right.
And it's like that game of trying to get you a better deal just to close you, but it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel honest.
Yeah. Well, so a really good salesperson is never going to lie. We might come up with our own marketing. So, for instance, this is something that some of us struggled with, because we knew what the real cost of the goods were. So when you know the cost of goods in sales, a lot of people will drop down to that cost and sell at that cost. So there's some businesses don't want their salespeople to know what the real cost of the goods are, because they don't want salespeople to drop their price too much. So they give them a bar that's up here. Say you can come below the bar, but you're not going to be at the cost of goods.
Right.
So some of us would say things like, our promotion, we could be like Walmart or Amazon and say, we have a promotion that's going to go away at the end of the month. So we would take our price, drop it a little bit for that month to get the business, right? To throw in incentives. Now, some people don't like that, and they say, well, that's dishonest, because you're selling the product for one price to someone else, someone different. But the reality is, go to any store. Any store is going to have a sale, right? So you go to, like here, and we have Publix grocery stores.
Right.
Someone's going to the counter complaining, well, last week you had 2 for the price of 1. I want the same price this week. No, that was the promotion.
That was it. Yeah.
So sometimes we have to come up with our own promotion to drive excitement about our business. I struggled with that in the beginning, but once I realized, I made the connection that stores, big businesses do this all the time. So it's not misleading, it's just the promotion, right? So that was one of the things that I struggled with. And there's different things that people might struggle with. But the reality is, if you go in serving people, you're honest, you do the right thing for people, the next thing you need to do, Silvana, is ask for the order.
Yes, that's a crucial piece of.
Talk to me. What were you going to say?
No, yeah, I was gonna say that to ask for the order is key because some people just do the sell and then okay, yeah, so that's the product. Okay, and you need to ask for the order, otherwise all the work you did is gonna be unfinished.
Exactly. So if you're doing a great job selling your services to me, and it sounds wonderful, and we're sitting there, and you close it all up and say, so what do you think? I'm like, it's nice.
Mhm.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Right.
this is what some people do. They'll say, well, let me know if you want to do anything. Right. And it's like,
So like,
so I just gave you buying signals, right? Talk to me. What's your thought?
yeah, at some point, long time ago, I think people thought that to be good sellers, you needed to be a good talker. But I think it's the other way around. That absolutely, what you need to be is a very good listener, and really, because the true good salesperson comes from a different, like a technique. I love your philosophy of sales. But and I think is the right way to do it when you look for when you truly are able to identify what the problem is, what the concern, problem, challenge your customer is experiencing, and how you can solve that by adding value, by solving a problem, by creating saving time, saving money, all of these things. And the only way to find out what it is by asking the right questions, right?
Exactly. And like you mentioned, it's like you be a good listener and then you become a consultant versus like what you said. A lot of people think that people that talk a lot are good in sales. Just like you, I don't agree with that at all. Because we don't want to listen to someone else. We want to do the talking, right? We want to be heard. We want to let others know what's on our mind. And so sometimes salespeople will say, let me tell you about my product. Let me tell you about all of our services. We're number 1 in the industry. Oh, I've been doing this for the longest time. No one's better than me. And they say everything is about me.
Right.
The buyer or the potential buyer or prospect, they want to explain what is on their mind. And if they're not getting a chance, then they're going to go elsewhere to get that chance.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it in the nail. So storytelling is such an important part of your philosophy. Can you share an example of how a good story helped you or one of your clients to connect with a customer or close a deal?
Yeah. So the reason storytelling is so good is that we're all raised in English. I don't know what it was in Spanish, but in English, it was once upon a time.
Sí, érase una vez in Spanish.
All right.
Una vez.
Una vez. Hace una problema. So, like, I'll give you, for instance, let's just say that I'm selling cars and I say that, yeah, you're looking for a, I don't know, sporty car that is reliable, doesn't break down, is fun to drive, and so forth. And I say things like, well, we're number 1 in the industry. There's more of these sold than anyone else. And, it's just facts. It's
Yeah.
not connect. But if I say, Silvana, last week there was a woman here very similar to you. She was entrepreneurial, wanted a little pizzazz in her life with her vehicle. She took this thing out for a test drive and fell in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just by saying that tiny little thing, that little micro story, you start nodding and saying, "Oh, that sounds a little bit like me." And so that's really the connection. So the more the stories are, and they don't have to be long, you don't have to be this magical story writer, but you just relate circumstances and events and you share those with people, and how someone of you became one of your clients is really very easy to do. And you're speaking, based on your memory. So so you do that now, I bet, right?
Yes, definitely. I do that. Yeah. Yeah, because people don't care about the all the standards or the specifications of the product, but they do care about what they are looking for. For instance, in the same example, if you tell me about well, you're looking for safety. This car, there was an accident that like last month, and the people in the car, it was a really bad accident, but the car or the structure of the car was able to save their life, for instance, something like that will definitely get my attention, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's finding out. So keeping track of stories is a good thing. So for those who are listening, jotting them down on your phone in your notes section on your phone is good, so that you can go back and look at these and say, well, how can I apply this? But your regular client stories are going to be very powerful because they're going to be relatable. You're speaking from your heart, how you help somebody. That really matters in the story. And holding back from the story is you're holding back from that emotional connection with your client. There is a chemical, I believe it's oxytocin, that's released in our brain when we hear the stories. And there's actually, through our brains, we make this connection that is, again, scientific. So you want to always work at becoming better at the storytelling. And not making them up, but I test myself just because I want to think on my feet as well. So, telling the stories, it may not all be perfect. I've said some, well, I'm not really sure how. I said, I'm working here. Work with me, right?
Yeah,
I
work in
do.
progress. Actually, I think people appreciate that transparency as well, that you are just learning, you're working your way on the storytelling, the honesty and the transparency, the authenticity is really special. And
Yeah. Well, this is all right. So, one of the best pieces of advice I got was one of my sales managers years ago said, just be yourself. And that I didn't even know how to apply. How do you apply being yourself? Right? Because you're having conversations. Am I myself here? But eventually, right, being who you are and not being a phony, like sometimes people are in a group where people are, or maybe they're more educated and they're using terms, and you feel like you have to go out on the limb and start using terms you're not comfortable with. That's not you, then don't do that, right? If that's not you, don't be that way. And I like to speak in, fifth grade terms where I can understand them and my listeners can understand them. If I start going on using the wrong word, then it's like, that's not being genuine, in my opinion, right?
yes,
It's not.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. The success in a story told is that you're able to explain it in easier words that simple that a kid can understand. I think that's the right approach.
Oh my goodness. So true, Silvana. I had a sales rep that worked for me, and he kept using these terms that were out there. And I asked him, I said, can you simplify this? And he says, no, it's complicated. And then there's some famous person, I don't remember who it was, but said, if you can't break it down where it's simple for the listener, then you don't understand it yourself,
That's right.
right?
It is right. Yes. It needs to be nice and simple and easy to explain, and it can be needs to be understood. And for that also another thing I think is good to get the feedback, right? Am I going the right way? Is there anything else I didn't address? When you are looking for a from a consultative sales strategy, you need
Yep.
to kind of verify if you're going the right path, right?
100%. So this is where we need to be adaptable. So we might think that sometimes, well, I'll just stick with that. We're being adaptable. It might be some other product. Like we go in thinking we're going to sell this and it may be something different, right? We may have to even customize a solution if we can based on what someone else's needs are. Now, I'm not saying go completely opposite. Like, for instance, I do sales coaching. I am not going to counsel somebody on diet and exercise. I could say, well, I could do that for you or for whoever I'm speaking to, but that's not in my area of expertise.
Right.
So being adaptable and flexible doesn't mean we change completely to something, that's unrelated to what we really do. But can we make adjustments to fit what the person is looking for? And that's, we might have rules of what the ideal situation looks like, but not everyone's going to be ideal, especially in the beginning. So we become a little bit more adaptable and say, well, I can do this. I can help you with this or whatever. And I think it's humility is involved, but not saying there's a fine line, but knowing where your area of expertise is. But sometimes people they need something a little bit different. What's your thought on that? Am I going too far on that?
No, I think you're right on. You mentioned flexibility, and I think that's a really important skill to learn.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the selling. The idea of selling might be intimidating for many. I mean, especially for the introvert kind. What is that one small habit they can build to get more comfortable with it?
Well, I think if the key thing is, and I compare this to the server in a fine dining restaurant, right? So servers have this servant mindset generally. And I've hired servers because they're great typically in sales because they're friendly, they're all about serving others. And that's kind of the way I wanted my sales team to be is these servant-minded individuals. Now, in a restaurant, you have tables. If someone comes in and the host seats someone at your table, you go out and you serve them. You don't hide behind the doors in the kitchen and say, oh my goodness, someone's sitting at my table. I don't know what to do. I'm going to be terrible. They're going to make fun of me. I'm going to say the wrong thing. They don't say any of that stuff. They just go in and say, I'm going to serve these people, right? I'm going to do my best. I'm going to serve these people. I may even tell them I'm new if I'm new. It's them. When we get nervous, if we can just say, I don't really care what happens to me. I am just going to serve this person. And every time I'm going to follow up with somebody because in sales, we need to follow up. We can't just be one and done. And someone says, well, I'm not really interested right now. And then we say, okay, well, they're gone forever. No, we should be following up. If their ideal client profile, we should follow up periodically. And what motivates us is the service, right? I'm going to serve this person. I don't care if they say no again, because I'm just going to make myself available and serve them and provide something of value. If we can do that, say, I'm going to provide value every conversation, I'm going to have a servant mindset, and I'm just going to do my job and follow up. And when the time is right, I'm going to ask for the order. If we do all of those things without being anything else, I'm telling you, you will have success in sales.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the rejection because a lot of people, as you say, some people are going to say no because they are not interested. This product does not fit their needs or many circumstances that they can say no. But what does that no means? Is it a no forever or is it a no yet? A lot of people fear rejection, but that helps them build resilience as well, right? What do you?
Yeah, 100%. It does build resilience, like you said. What comes to mind for you on resilience? When you mention that, what comes to mind for you?
Resilience is being, well, first of all, in this case, don't take it personally. Just if they are saying no to that proposal in that moment in those terms. But resilience is to be strong enough to be okay and to come back and to recover from that and to be strong.
Exactly. So I like it. So let's just go back to the server in the restaurant. And I offer the wine list. I'm the server. I offer you the wine list. Would you like to take a look at the wine list? And you say, no,
Yes.
all I want is water.
Okay.
Now, what just happened to my revenue opportunity? If you say all I want is water, my revenue opportunity went down, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what should be on my face? Should I be disappointed that you don't want wine? Or should I be happy that I'm still there to serve you? Right?
Go for the second one. Go be happy. You're still there to serve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
I'm disappointed, that's going to show in my face.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so now I become that pushy server where nobody likes, where they're not enjoying the meal. It's like, well, this person keeps trying to push. I don't want the special. I came in here for the roasted chicken. I don't want the truffled fed pork chop or something.
Right.
Right? You're there to serve. You can make a suggestion, but if they say, no, I don't want that, I want this, then we still serve with a smile on our face. So same is true in business is sometimes, and we have to talk to the right person. If I'm trying to sell diet and exercise to somebody who's already diet, exercise conscious and is fit and has their own coach, I'm just going to say, you're fine with where you are. Look at you. You're great where you are. And I'm going to go find someone who has a problem and they want it solved. Not everyone has a problem. Not everyone wants it solved. But for those that do, sometimes they're just not ready. And so they say no, and we don't understand why they say no. And they say things like, I'm not really interested right now. Well, now we don't know why they're not interested.
That's a good time for a comeback question, a follow-up question.
And what would that be in your mind? What comes up?
Perhaps, well, I can ask why. Are you on a diet or more than yes or no question? I will be like, why? Why you're not interested? It might come to a strong, and in this case, but I might rephrase that. But my point will, yeah, because really that's what I want to know. Perhaps it's this medication. They cannot drink wine, or they might be on a diet. Who knows?
Right.
Religion.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that people say, I'm all set or I'm not interested in. Sometimes we can ask the question, right? We have to read the person. And, some people can get away with asking why and so forth, and others not so much because we come across as being accusatory, right? We're accusing them or they're making a mistake. And now we're viewing them like we need to correct them. And so that's a concern, right? With our emotions.
Right.
No.
Yes.
So for instance, I don't know you very well. I mean, you and I, we've had a couple of conversations. I don't know anything. Say I'm a financial planner. So I say, Silvana, how is your retirement savings looking? And you say, well, Harry, I'm all set. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you're all set? Right? How can you be all set? Now I'm coming across, I'm not friendly, I'm not consultative, I am now more like accusing you that you shouldn't be all set. I don't know if accusing is the right word, but
Yeah, but I know too strong, maybe.
challenging you.
Right.
Strong.
Right.
So instead, I could say, totally get it. when you're all set and you've got someone you trust that's helping you and you feel good about things, I totally get it. I respect that. And then I could ask another question that is maybe casual, but I'm not going to pry too deep because you already put up a barrier there by telling me you're all set. So now I have to kind of work around that. So what I might do is say, Sylvia, I totally appreciate where you're coming from, that you're all set. I'm all set in a lot of ways too, and I know what that means. But when you say you're all set, could you describe what that means to you so I have a better understanding so that my follow will fit with what your needs are? So do you mind sharing what all set means to you? Right. So now my approach is more, I'm curious, but if you say, Harry, I am all set at that point, what should I do? What would you say?
I would say yes. Well, because I really would love to know what that person means, right? But then on the other hand, also that person put the barrier twice, so definitely don't wanna share much information. That might be because she feels intimidated. She wants to protect. She might not be all set, more likely, because otherwise she would talk about it. So I would say, yes, I understand you're all set. But for me, all set, I might open up with something of my own to try to get her to open up.
Right?
Yeah, a story will be a good one.
Yeah, exactly. So you can say something along the lines that I totally get it. I've been all set many times in my life. And when people talk to me about finances, I just said I'm all set because I didn't really want to have the conversation. Does that fit in with you a little bit, or is there something else? Something you might be able to get away with it.
Yeah.
I want to fine tune that. And sometimes it's trial and error. I'm trying it on a person to see what kind of response I'm going to get. There's no harm in trying. But the second time they say I am all set and they say it with force, that's when I'm backing up. So I'm now physically, I'm pulling myself back. So I'm not in their face. So now they can see that the body language is right. I'm acknowledging what they say, put my hands up and say, I get it. Right. So now I'm going to change the subject, talk about something else, totally appreciate where they're going from. What's the plan for the weekend? Something along those lines. Right. So that I get to say, we're not going to talk about that anymore.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. But now if I have now start having relationships, so say we're in a community, I see the person again. And I said, hey, you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago. You said you're going to do this for the weekend. How did that work out for you? And now we see each other periodically. It's like, hey, Silvana, how's the family? Any trips this year? I'm still going to be friendly. I'm not going to ignore her. And she said she was all set. So I can't talk to her anymore. Right. But then maybe, I start to build trust. The likability factor comes in and I say, hey, would you be up for a coffee? It's been a few months since we chatted. Would you want to be up for a coffee? And you might say, sure, but don't talk to me about finances. Right. If you say that, then I'm not going to talk about it. Right. Because I'm still earning the trust. Right. There's still a reason there. But if they don't say that, then it's like, well, she knows that this is what I do. Probably going to tolerate another question. And so now I'm going to tactfully bring it up, but it's not going to be the first thing I bring up. I'm going to ask, what's your business? How are you doing in your business? What's new? What are you working on? Who can I introduce you to? All kinds of ways I could serve the person. Then I'll just say, a few months ago, you and I spoke and you said you're really all set and you didn't want to talk about the financial planning, the services, whatever. Was the reason, is that because you are working with somebody, or did you have an experience that maybe you didn't love? Now, because I've done so much on the giving, I may get an answer now.
You earn it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Where you slow down the sale instead of going in for the jugular is an expression, right?
Exactly.
Right? So what's your thought? Talk to me.
I love that. Yes. And just to keep in mind, I think whenever somebody says no, it's a no yet. It's not like a no forever, or it's a no to you. It's not a no, a rejection to you as a person. It's a rejection to your specific proposal at that moment in those terms.
Yeah.
So I would say just keep focus and on actually solving a problem and adding value so you can actually get a yes eventually. Yeah.
So it's not us, right? It's really what the offer is.
Exactly. Perhaps if that is not good enough, it's not solving their problem at this moment. They have other circumstances. I mean, we might need to do some more digging, and then eventually we'll get the yes, the expected yes. Let's talk a little bit about your book. It's so inspiring. Let's tell us a little bit about your book, and also what's another book that or author that has been a huge impact in your life and you would like to share with us.
Yeah. Okay. So first, I'm going to go last question first, which is
Okay.
it's another book that's made a huge impact. There's some great books out there, and in my mind is swimming right now. But probably the biggest impacted book that made a difference for me was Seven Habits of Highly Successful People.
Oh, I love it.
Even probably written in the mid '90s, I believe.
I have that somewhat.
Have that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you like about that book?
I know that this is it gives us a like a structure or what to do to be successful and effective. And I think it's all about habits. I mean, the name of this podcast is Happiness by Habits. So I'm a big believer of habits, creating good habits that can change your life.
Yeah, that's really good. I can't tell you what the seven habits are, but I can tell you what I learned from the book. One was recognize my circle of influence. So how that helps in sales is not everybody is a prospect. So when you focus on the ones who can actually buy, who actually have a problem, who are actually looking for a solution and have the money to do that, that becomes your circle of influence.
Mhm.
And the other thing that really stood out in that book was listening to understand. The idea of listening until it was your turn to speak is what I had thought listening was. You had your chance, now it's my turn. And that's not listening to understand. So when we learn to listen, to understand what the person is trying to say, or what they're saying, or what they're thinking, that is a whole different way to listen. So those are two of the things I got out of the book, plus others. But anyway, two of the ones that stand out. And in my book, Selling with Dignity, I talk about listening with empathy, right? Where we listen, where we're really, and it's really from Stephen Covey's book, is listening to understand what the other person is doing, acknowledging it, using our emotional intelligence. But anywhere that you are struggling in sales, you can pretty much look to the chapter and read the chapter. It's not written like a novel. It's not written like one long story. It is, if you have a problem with being persistent, if you have a problem with listening, if you have a problem with sticking to the challenges or feeling like you're too kind or too nice, whatever the topic is, you can go to that chapter and read something on it that should help you.
Very. Yeah, no, I love that. That's a good thing. Absolutely. I wanted to thank you very much for your time and your insights have been really interesting and I have enjoyed it very much. I would love for you to share with our listeners your social media or where can they find you to work with you or to learn more about you.
Yeah, I'd say that if you look up Selling with Dignity, you're going to find me.
Awesome. Yes.
Right?
Nice.
Yeah. And there's no other Harry Spaight, I don't think, in the world. So if you can spell my last name and Google me, you're going to find me. My dad was a Harry Spaight, but he's been deceased now for 15 years or so. So you're going to find me. And
Awesome.
I'll be happy to have a conversation with you, whatever, talk about sales. So happy.
Very nice. Very nice. It's been an absolute pleasure. Your message was so uplifting and it's so refreshing to hear such a positive take on sales.
Well, thank you for
Orly,
the opportunity.
yes.
You've got a
Thank
great mind for serving others too. So I love the title of the podcast, right? It's
Thank you.
habits.
Happiness by habit. Changing the world one habit at a time.
Yeah, great. So what's neat
Well,
this time of year, people are thinking about their habits too, at the beginning of the year.
yeah, it's the time of the year. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And to our listeners, if you're looking to transform your how to sell or even how you approach your relationships in life, I highly recommend checking out Harry's book, Selling with Dignity. We will put a link here on the podcast as well. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you, Silvana.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Happiness by Habit. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone who could use a little extra joy in their day. Remember, happiness isn't just a destination, it's a habit we can create every day. Until next time, stay positive, stay curious, and keep building your joy one step at a time. Nos vemos!